I would like to introduce the Sharps. You have the results, and we found out, and I love being new to a district, we found out that, of course, the governing board has to approve this data to be released to the public. And so what we have asked is Kathy Day and Pamela, is it Bello or Bello? Bello, thank you, who are from Valley Mental Health, and Mary Van Leeuwen, sorry about that. And she'll be presenting the information along with our intervention specialist, Sam Walsh. And so what I've asked is that they spend about 10 minutes, really 10 minutes or less, looking at the overall highlights, changes, any trends that we're seeing that we need to be aware of. So welcome.
Do you want to jump in? Okay. All right, thanks so much for having me here. I prepared a lot more slides than I have time for. So if you have any questions, any of you, just type up, or I will go around afterwards. I'm here to talk about the Student Health and Risk Prevention Survey, which we call the SHARP survey. SHARP is the love child of 3 state agencies. Prior to 2003, each of these state agencies were doing their own survey at a separate time. And as you know, in Utah, we have active parent permission, which meant that these survey processes were hard for everybody. So they combined everything into one administration so that every other year we just do the SHARP survey, which gathers data for all of these agencies. It gathers data for that can be used at the districts, schools, by counselors. I've been meeting with district counselors in about 5 other districts across the state to talk about how they can incorporate SHARP data into their annual data projects that are required by the state. I've been talking about how the data from SHARP can feed into NOSCA's 8 components of career and college readiness. The data is also used very much by not only the district, but by your region, Summit, Local Substance Abuse Authority. All in all, it's just a great project. We build a lot of validity checks into the data. I know we all know of a student, it could be your own or it could be your brother or sister, anybody who doesn't take these types of surveys very seriously. I want to assure you, and I don't have a lot of time to go into validity, that we have a lot of validity checks built into the system to weed out those dishonest students so that the data that you have, you can feel confident with. These are the 5 validity checks that are built in. For Park City School District, we surveyed 944 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. Only 23 of those, 2.4%, were eliminated by meeting one of those, at least one of those 5 validity criteria. That's actually down from 2011. We removed an additional 8 surveys because of odd grade surveying, and we are left with 913 surveys, which we'll talk about today. We surveyed all of the 3 schools that contain students in these grades, your high school, your junior high, and your middle school. We got our best participation by 6th graders, 80%. Best participation, though I would still say this is amazing for your middle school and your high school. When it comes to active parent permission, these return rates are really fantastic. And the data has been weighted so that it's more representative of your population, even the students who didn't return those forms or participate in the survey. This is just a quick breakdown of your demographics. This table is included in the profiles that you all have or that will be released to the public. One thing just to note here is that the participation in Park City School District has increasingly gone up, and we attempt to survey the same number of students every administration. So this just goes to show that the school district is just doing a better and better job at gathering parental consent and getting the survey done. And I'd like to send a thank you, and I don't think she's here, to Cindy Hare, who does an amazing job as our survey coordinator of the district. Thank you to her. So one of the first things that we would ask you to do is just take a look at your data and see if this is representative of your population as far as demographics, both gender and ethnicity. The next few slides I'm just going to briefly point out just a few highlights, but again I'd like to just emphasize that even the data that you have in your profile reports is just a drop in the bucket as far as what we can do to really dig in and wring out just the maximum benefit from the survey. I would encourage all of you to just think outside of the box of the ways that you could use your SHARP survey data. Your teachers worked very hard to gather these consent forms. Your parents worked hard to return them. Your students worked hard to take the survey seriously. And we want you to feel like this data is your data to use for a number of reasons. This slide shows 30-day substance use, which we consider to be more of a measure of regular substance use for your 6th grade population, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade. You can see we have 3 years of data here dating back to 2009. The survey has actually been administered from 2003. So we have 6 years of data, but I'm just going to focus on the latest 3. And what we have here is a comparison to the National Monitoring the Future survey. The profile reports we have show your data in comparison to the state. Sometimes that's beneficial and sometimes it isn't. In Utah, we have a vast amount of just different populations and different communities. I thought it'd be helpful here to see your data in relation to the nation. So a few really great things. We're seeing a really amazing decrease in regular alcohol use for all of your grades except the 12th grade, which saw a spike just in the last couple of years. But this is amazing to go in 2009, just 4 years ago, for your 10th graders, nearly 40% of them had used alcohol in the past 30 days, all the way down to 20%. A decreased path is incredible. And now you are far below the national average for nearly all of these components. This gradual increase of marijuana use is something that we've seen across the state, and it's something that more and more communities are becoming concerned about. Underage alcohol use is a very serious priority of the state of Utah, and prevention efforts have really mirrored that. But I have a feeling that the tide is going to be turning, and more efforts are going to be focused on underage marijuana use. Oh, another great thing here is prescription drug use, which is also a big target that the state is hitting, is also significantly down, especially for your teenagers. This slide shows for all grades combined, so 6, 8, 10, and 12 all together, a couple of things. It shows 3 years of data, it shows your data in relation to the state, your data in relation to a national norm. One thing to take away from this is your data is actually very stable. I think this is just a reassurance of the validity of your data. A couple of things that I just pointed out really quickly from here is we asked students, have you seriously considered suicide in the past year? This is an example of, again, an interesting topic that can be of use to schools, your counselors, your parents. And your data shows that there's just been a slight increase in the percent of students who considered suicide in the last year, but you are lower than the state for that, and a number of mental health questions. In general, suicide ideation has increased across the state. Your antisocial behavior rate, so have you attacked someone with the intent of harming them? Have you carried a handgun to school? Have you sold illegal drugs? A lot of really great decreases here, and you're lower than the state for a good chunk of these. We asked students, if you've used alcohol in the past year, what are some of the places that you've used alcohol? Just a few things to point out. These are the percent of students who marked at least one instance of alcohol use. This is not the percent of all of your students. So of the students who said they'd used alcohol in the past year, about 50% of them said that they got alcohol at their parents' home with their parents' permission. A majority of those students are getting alcohol at their home or someone else's home without a parent's permission. We also asked students, if you've used alcohol in the past year, where have you gotten that? Similar question, but different. Of your students who indicated at least one use of alcohol in the past year, a majority of them are getting it at a party, which is not probably a huge surprise, but that percentage has decreased significantly since the last administration. I'd like to point out this table. It often goes unrecognized in your profile, but it contains really great data for your schools. We asked students a couple of questions about bullying and safety on your way to school or at school. Bullying has increased across the state. And your community is no exception for a good number of grades. This is great data to be used in a number of ways. We asked about perceived teacher and principal discipline. In the school districts I've been talking to the counselors, this is the type of data that often goes overlooked, that when you really dig into it is amazing. If you really want to dive into some really interesting topics, you can look at things like race, ethnicity, gender, grade, socioeconomic background. The possibilities are really endless. And we asked students, of the students in your class, what percent do you feel are using substances compared to actual use? And this is, again, a great piece to share with your students that not everybody actually is doing it. There's a vast difference there. So I pointed out just a few highlights from that last table. Overall perceived use of marijuana has increased for all grades. We've seen this correlation with the state as well, and this just makes sense. Students are perceiving that more kids are actually using it, or that the perception is that more kids are using it, and more kids actually are using it, and those two go hand in hand. Your perceptions of perceived cigarette use have actually increased, and perceptions of alcohol use, at least for your 8th, 10th, and 12th grades, have decreased. This one last slide, and then I can get into some questions. This is a new question that we added to the 2013 SHARP survey. We asked the state, as you know, really has a big focus on underage drinking, which they should. And the state is interested to know, of those kids who indicated that they've been getting alcohol with the parents' permission, in what instances do their parents actually allow them to drink? This question, and we asked this question of students originally in a community in Martha's Vineyard when we did a survey for them a few years back, and we presented it to the state of Utah as an option for them to add to the survey. I think it's really, as far as all of the communities in Utah, this is most applicable to you. You're a more social community, a different population. You've got a vast amount of population just from all across the world and across the state. And it's interesting here, we've just got 1 year data, and the most interesting findings were found in the 10th and 12th grade. So you can see that your data, which are the blue bars, 10th and 12th grade, these are all of the options that the students could mark. You can see compared to the state, a good, you just have more students who indicate that the parents allow them to drink. That's not a huge surprise when we can consider the other slide. You can see the instances in which they're the biggest differences to the state. So when it comes to students marking that the parents allow them to drink when they are with them or at parties when adults are present, you guys are really similar with the state and for the 10th and 12th grades. The same goes at when it comes to students who mark that they're allowed to drink at home as long as their friends, as long as no one else is driving. The biggest differences are students who indicate that they're allowed to drink at a toast for a wedding or other celebration, at family parties, or during a religious service. And again, I should clarify that this is of the kids who marked that they had used alcohol in the past month. So these are more of our regular substance users. But this is another indicator, or just instance of data that we could pull out aside from what's in your profile that is really fascinating and can be done to do some really targeted efforts across your community. I have a couple slides in here about risk and protection. The survey gathers great data on the community, family, school, and peer individual domains. I know that you guys aren't completely concerned about programming at all of these levels, but this is just a great slide, a couple of slides to remind you that the survey gathers data that is incredibly beneficial for your community. It takes a whole community to raise a child, and there are programs and agencies throughout your community that value this data for the work that they are doing at all of those different levels. I'm going to leave, I've probably overspoken, but this is my contact information. If you have any questions, want to dive into your data, I would love to help you do this with it. Just bring it out and get the most benefit of it. And I'll just open up for questions if you guys have any. No? Great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great
Have we
report.
had, are we planning on having a debriefing, like of our leadership team and counselors and?
We did.
You did, okay.
When we all met.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, we actually invited Mary to make the same presentation to all of the administrators and counselors in the district along with Ember so that they could have access and digest, you know, their data for ECHR, for Treasure in the high school. So we've kind of released that already to the counselors and administrators so that they can use that information in prevention programming moving forward. And Kathy Day is here, our prevention coordinator for Summit County through Valley Mental Health. She works in collaboration with us at the schools to plan future prevention efforts. So we're working on a few things together. I don't know if you want to talk about your exciting idea about the basketball game.
I don't know if they've got time.
Well, if you just want to briefly,
Okay, just,
it was Kathy's really great idea.
you're probably familiar with the Parents Empowered campaign, and they just did a huge press conference and drive by the liquor store. It's great. They've got a skier, you know, going through the building. That's the image that it is, and it says underage drinking hurts. Anyway, to go along with that, we are going to have a halftime, what do I want to say, extravaganza, not really, but we're going to address underage drinking during halftime at a basketball game on the 31st, and we've got some fun things planned there. So if any of you are going to be there, you'll be able to see what we're going to do.
Another thing we're working on in collaboration with Valley Mental Health is they've invited us, Willow Amendola from Ecker, myself, and Nora Buchanan to go to the Prime for Life training in St. George in February. Kathy and Pamela and Cassidy are trained in Prime for Life, which is an evidence-based substance abuse program that kids, if they got a drinking ticket or a DUI, they would be court-ordered to attend and have to pay. We are starting our own Prime for Life at the high school for both Treasure Mountain and the high school on Monday. It's a 4-session, 16-hour substance abuse program that shows it changes future attitudes and behaviors towards substances. Parents can sign their kids up, and kids can sign themselves up, and surprisingly, we have a full class starting Monday, so we're really excited and appreciative to Valley Mental Health for helping us.
It's a great program. It's interesting because I teach it for adults, and they come in, pretty grouchy that they've been court ordered to be there, and by the end of it, they have really changed their attitudes, and they are grateful that they had the opportunity to learn the things that they did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, report.